So should I continue? Should we keep just going with it now?
Yeah.
Jumped into
Go
it?
for
Yeah?
it.
All
Why
right.
not? We're in it
All
now.
right. Welcome to Two Girls, One Garbage Can, the podcast, the Auspol podcast, where we explore Australia's garbage can political system using historical events for some much needed context. I am your host, Tamara, here with my co-host, Matty. And Matty, I got a question for you, Matty.
Okay.
Have you ever fucked up so badly that Daddy took away your toys for 2 whole decades?
I mean, look, I've had some pretty big fuck-ups in my time, and it was never Daddy taking away my toys. It was always Mummy. 2 decades? No, not quite that long. 2 weeks, I think, is probably the longest period of time I've suffered a punishment for.
That's about average, I'd say, for the average timeout. But anyway.
Especially with the magnitude of my cock-ups.
Today we are going to be talking about ASIS, Australia's Secret Intelligence Service, which is a subsidiary of ASIO, the Australian Security Intelligence Organisation. The primary function of ASIS is the collection of foreign intelligence. Under its directive, it was also required, and is, I should say, now also required to maintain a covert action capability. However, for a while, that covert action capability was rescinded as a result of an exercise that happened on the 30th of October in 1983. Before I jump in, I have to tell you, I came across this story because I was researching the history of lobbying in Australia.
I love that.
I stumbled across this, and so this became what we're talking about today.
Understood.
It was too good to pass up. And when I tell you that after finding about the ex-MP who was accidentally giving foreign intelligence to the KGB, the fact that he didn't make it into the story at the end of the day. I will say that for any of our Ko-fi members as well, so just do a shout out of Ko-fi nice and early on in the piece this week. If you want to support us and you don't have the means to join our Ko-fi, then of course please jump on our podcast wherever you get your podcasts, have a listen to us there.
Yep.
Give us 5 stars, give us a little bit of a rating. Every little comment helps.
Send a link to your buddy.
Absolutely. Share that
Tie
shit.
them to a chair and open their eyes with toothpicks and make them watch it at full volume. With love. If you do have a spare couple of bucks a month that you want to kick our way and become one of our trash pandas, you do get a couple of great bonuses, including extra bits that we leave out, exclusives that are only for our Ko-fi members, including exclusive episodes that aren't released anywhere else. And you also get things like the notes and the background research, access to all of that goes into it. I have collected all of my research and all of my script notes for this episode, and I've popped them in a document that is going to be available on the Ko-fi, because there is a lot that I obviously couldn't include in this episode. Just so you know, It's about 30 pages of notes that I've got here. The findings of the Royal Commission were about 80 pages. So, yeah. In case you haven't guessed, this is about one of the biggest screw-ups in ASIO's history, certainly in the history of ASIS, the Australian Security Intelligence Service. So, as I said, the primary function of the Australian Security Intelligence Service is the collection of foreign intelligence. It is also required under its directive to maintain a covert action capability, or at least this was the case in the period leading up to the 30th of November 1983. In the period from August 1982 to November 1983, ASIS, with ministerial approval, had a project aimed at developing a new basis upon which a covert action capability would be maintained. For the purpose of the project, they recruited and trained a small group of people who would give the service a covert action capability. So these recruits would be part-time agents who would come together for periods of activity and intense training, but then otherwise would go back to pursuing their normal lives and activities, and they had normal day jobs. So think like season 1 of The Block. The period of training that began in August 1982 was to end in November 1983 with a big exercise.
Yep.
So this big exercise was supposed to be conducted without any publicity, without involving any people other than those directly taking part. It was supposed to be a covert operation. While it was intended that members of the public would not become involved, in any event, they did become involved in a quite spectacular way that, as I said, resulted in a lot of attention being brought to the agency, and it resulted in 2 decades worth of censure and shame. So let's talk a little bit about the project as it is called in all of the official documents. On the night of the 30th of November 1983, which is the night in question, there was an incident at the Sheraton Hotel in Melbourne which arose from a project training exercise. This exercise involved the rescue of a hostage being held in a hotel room by 2 foreign intelligence officers of a major power. The foreign intelligence officers and the hostage were played by ASIS staff members. 6 ASIS trainees had been asked to carry out this rescue. As I said, this exercise was the final part in what was a 3-week intensive training period. And as part of that training, there was a lot of different exercises and development that the trainees had to undertake. Through review of this process, one of the things the judge noted was that there was a particular emphasis on war game type tactics, very hostile, aggressive actions.
Yep.
In the first 2 weeks of the training period, the trainees concentrated on development of physical fitness and coursework. This particularly focused on close quarter combat, surveillance, unarmed combat, methods of entry, medical skills, and photography. They also engaged in surveillance exercises that lasted for 4 days. These trainees had undertaken previous training courses, both at ASIS training facilities and elsewhere, including one surveillance operation in a city location. So when we talk about the final exercise that's being undertaken, it's really important to note that there was an understanding by those who were involved that these trainees had some idea that they knew what they were doing.
You'd assume.
That doesn't absolve anyone of any misconduct, but It's just important to note that these people had undertaken other training exercises that had not gone badly. There had been other training exercises that had gone in city locations. There was reason to believe that these guys would be fine with this training exercise.
Yeah.
Or at least some reason. The scenario of the exercise had not been devised until the 3-week training period actually commenced. It was drafted by an unnamed senior ASIS officer who'd been placed in charge of the project. He was given some assistance from the Army Instruction Team, or the AIT. The ASIS officer, who I'm going to call Dave throughout this document because he remains unnamed throughout the entire process, but we're going to call him Dave because,
God fucking damn it, Dave. There goes the last shit that I ever gave.
That's all I was thinking the whole
Understood.
time I was reading this. The ASIS officer, who we will call Dave, discussed the exercise briefly and in very general terms with his branch head, the Assistant Director General of Operations. And that discussion occurred sometime between mid-October and mid-November in 1983. We're talking a few months before the training began, but the actual scenario wasn't devised in any detail until just before the training. So while this conversation happened in October and November, there's no way that it could have been a specific conversation because he didn't know any specifics at that time. The Assistant Director General of Operations asked Dave for a written plan of the exercise. However, he never received one at any point. Dave also talked about the exercise on the 22nd of November to the head of the proposed Directorate of Covert Action and Emergency Planning, who I'm going to refer to as HEP from now on because that's the initial spell out HEP, and that isn't a mouthful. The
Yep.
HEP, the HEP,
hop,
yeah.
Heppity hop.
Now,
hop.
the HEP had no direct responsibility for the project, but he did have an interest in the special operations field and was scheduled to take direct responsibility for that area after a proposed internal reorganisation within ASIS was going to happen. So in the future, he was going to be responsible for that area. He had been read in on the information. There was reason to think that this guy should have taken more of an interest, but he didn't. He kind of went, not my problem. I'll wait until it becomes my problem in February next year. That's when I'm going to give more of a shit about what's going on. He wasn't in the chain of command at this point. So he doesn't actually have any direct responsibility. But as I said, he did have an interest in the operation. At that discussion, he was told that weapons would be carried during that procedure. He's the head of emergency planning, HEP. He is told that there will be weapons, they will be carried during this exercise. He's told that the weapons will be concealed handguns. He then, at that point, informs Dave that if that is the case, then he is going to need approval from the acting director general in order to get the carriage of firearms. Now, the acting director general at this point is a man named John Edmund Ryan, who at the end of this loses his job. Just as a heads up, Ryan's head rolls at the end of this.
Okay.
As we said, at this point, we know firearms are going to be used, and Dave has been informed by HEP, who, again, isn't responsible, but obviously knows what he's talking about because he's been told he will be responsible later on when this reorganisation happens, has informed Dave, hey, you better check with the acting director general, being John Ryan, that this is all hunky-dory before you go carrying these handguns. On the 24th of November, with the exercise just 6 days away, Dave drew up a list of equipment which could be called upon by the trainees for use during the exercise. The equipment was intended to form a small quartermaster's store. The trainees would know what was held in the store and could requisition any items that they felt they might need for the exercise. So it was designed to act as though they had full access to whatever might be on that list. Okay? On that list, Dave wrote 6 Browning 9mm automatic pistols, handguns, and 4 Heckler & Koch submachine guns, 2 of them silenced.
That's a lot of fucking armaments. Especially for a group that's meant to have gotten permission for concealed carry sidearms. Not H&K submachine guns.
They've been told they need to get permission for concealed handguns.
Right. Right.
Dave, damn it, fucking Dave.
For a group that hasn't yet, to the knowledge of the higher-ups, got permission for concealed carry sidearms. But they assume that the permission is there, and suddenly they've got 4 H&K SMGs, 2 of which are silenced, and 6 Brownings. Okie dokie then. Are we going to fucking war?
In the Sheraton Hotel in Melbourne.
Yeah.
Let's not forget this exercise is happening, in the Sheraton Hotel.
Hang on. Let me ask a question. What government was in at the time? ALP or Lib? Was it ALP? Was there a union conference going on at the Sheraton? Were the ALP trying to take out union members again?
No. Nothing quite so sinister.
Please watch our previous episodes if you don't understand why that joke is a thing. No. Please watch our previous episodes to understand why Labour does not fuck with unions despite what their advertising says.
I was going to say nothing quite that sinister, but oh hell. Oh hell. The Labour government. Yeah. Off with the heads.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Look, here's the thing. Here's the really concerning thing. At this point, John has no idea that this plan exists, okay? Let's just be... Dave's been told he needs to talk to John about this plan. John's got no fucking clue that this plan is happening.
Oh, okay. Great.
So
okay,
when
cool.
I was
Let's
talking
go.
earlier about the Acting Director General of Operations B, that's a different guy who has nothing to do with the John Ryan, the Acting Director General, who's supposed to know what's going on. At this point, he
I
still has
see.
6 days before the exercise. He has no fucking clue this is going on. So,
And these are the people we entrust with the country's security.
yeah. The former Acting Director General of ASIS, being John Ryan, said during cross-examination that he who knows ought to be responsible. However, he seemed to have some difficulty in grappling with the proposition that he who ought to know ought to be responsible.
Right? Like, I'm sorry, bud, but if it's your job to know and you don't know, that means that you have failed your job.
Absolutely.
Your entire job is knowing stuff.
Yeah. You're the Acting Director General. Like, you're supposed to be directing shit.
Of people who make it their business to be all up in everyone else's business.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, you'd think if any boss ever
Yes.
should be across everything that's happening,
Yeah.
it's the guy that's in charge of a bunch of spooks.
Absolutely. This response of Mr. Ryan occurred in the context of his having stated in evidence given to the Royal Commission that happened after the fact that he didn't feel any personal guilt in relation to this incident because while he felt that he had a responsibility in the sense that the Acting Director General had responsibility for anything that happens in general terms that happens with the ASIS. He, however, didn't seem to think that he had any direct responsibility, despite the fact that in order for the exercise to have occurred, direct permission was supposed to have been sought from him. This guy was like, well, I mean, I get that I'm responsible because I was in charge, but really, I don't feel any personal responsibility. What?
Yeah, I know my name is on the sign that's above the door, but I wasn't in that meeting.
Yeah. No. I know I should have been in that meeting, but I wasn't, so okay.
Oh boy.
We got to forget that John for a bit because there's a different John coming up.
Oh god, why is everyone named John?
Because it's the only name. It's the only name that white men have. Now, this is going to get worse. This is going to get worse.
Oh, good.
So I
Oh,
hope we're ready.
good. Let's go.
This is why the lobbyist accused of treason didn't make it into the episode, Matty. This gets so good. The day after making this list, the 25th of November, the weapons were taken from the ASIS training facility armoury and packed in preparation for their removal to the exercise location. Dave also contacted the ASIS security section and asked them to issue Commonwealth exercise cards for the trainees involved in the exercise. ASIS has a stock of these cards. They are obtained from the Defence Authorities. These cards indicate that the holder is taking part in a Commonwealth government exercise, and it lists 3 officers at the Victoria Barracks who can be contacted to confirm the person's identification to get their bona fides in the event that the police intervene. This is foreshadowing.
Foreshadowing is a literary device.
Foreshadowing. There is a conflict of evidence about what happened here between Dave and the security guard that he spoke to about these exercise cards. Dave did communicate that weapons would be carried, and this information was passed on to the Army liaison officer. However, there is some disagreement over whether Dave stated that he had obtained approval or that he was obtaining approval from the Acting Director General, John Ryan, let's call him Ryan to avoid confusion, for the carriage of these weapons. Okay. So the security officer claims that after being informed of the intention to carry weapons, He advised Dave that he didn't know that there was any legal authority whatsoever for ASIS to carry weapons in public. So he said, look, all right, I'll give you these cards, but just FYI, as far as we're aware, there's no legal authority for ASIS to carry weapons in public at all. So you better check on that. And the conflict here is whether Dave said, I've got permission or I'm getting permission.
Okay, so just before we go any further, let me get the players in this game, because I'm about to draw up one of them conspiracy stringboard things, so that everyone who's watching can follow what the fuck's happening.
Get
because
it?
We've got two Johns.
Get
like we're going to need something here. So we've got John Ryan. Yeah. So John Ryan is the
acting Director General of ASIS. So his ass is on the line.
Excellent. So I'm going to put him at the center of this, right? Because the buck is supposed to stop with him.
But he's not. This is the problem, Dave. Dave is at the center of all of this. This is why I gave him a name. A lot of these other people you won't hear from again. So as much as I'm like, these security people...
put Dave at the top then.
Yeah. So these people I'm mentioning really as side characters, they only come into it because when the state was trying to figure out what happened, they kept stumbling across evidence that Dave had been warned again and again and again and again that this was a bad idea.
Okay, I understand now. I will put away the conspiracy board.
No, I mean...
It's not needed.
Yeah.
It's not needed.
So...
It's all side characters.
They're all side characters in this thing. Really, the only people who are in it are Dave, Hep, and John Ryan. They're the only people who are really...
Awesome. Everyone else is just like a speed bump.
Yeah.
That is like, hey, Dave.
Yeah, Dave.
Slow your roll, buddy.
Dave.
You're fucking up.
Yeah.
You're about to make a mistake, Dave.
Yeah. So when Dave, that's why I just kind of called him the security section rather than giving him a name. So when Dave contacted ASIS security section, the first thing someone told him was just a rando security guy. The first thing they said was, you don't have permission to carry weapons in Australia. Are you sure you've got permission to carry weapons in Australia? Don't think you guys have the weapons permission to carry those in Australia.
Okay. So not doing a lot of listening this way.
No, Dave doesn't have very good listening skills. The Royal Commission did find after the fact that the issuance of these cards did not in any way, shape or form imply the knowledge or consent of the Army for the exercise. The Army issued these cards in order for, if something happened, for them to be able to give clearance to people who were carrying out these exercise. But it was kind of, let me put it this way, it's kind of like when you've got a community organisation that does a lot of fundraising, and then there's a community organiser that they know of who does a lot of great community work. That fundraising organisation might not make that one particular community organiser go through the same steps to get funding that they would any random Joe Blogs off the street.
Yeah, right.
They give you a shortcut because they know that you've got the credentials already.
And they've worked with you in the past and et cetera.
They've worked with you in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was all these cards were. Like, we know ASIS have security clearances already. They have their own processes that they go through. If they're giving out these security clearance cards, it's because they've gone through their checks. We don't need to also perform our own secondary checks. That would just be gumming up the works with extra bureaucracy.
Yeah,
so
right.
they were found to have not been at all complicit. They did not have any... In terms of the chain of command and who should have known about this and where they should have gone, the Army, for once, are not at fault.
Yeah, the Army had actually done all of the things that were legally required of them.
The trainees were given their first briefing about this exercise on Saturday the 26th of November, which was 4 days before the exercise was due to take place. More details were going to be divulged the following day, and they were going to get even more details throughout the actual exercise itself. It was agreed early on that they would not have all the information up front, as that was quite normal for an operation for information to be divulged as things went on.
Yeah, a bit of a drip feed.
Yeah. So at the first 2 meetings, that first one being the 26th and the one the following day, the 27th, the trainees were told that their job would be to conduct surveillance on a man named John, who had earlier defected from his country and was at the time living and working on a farm near Geelong. John was the brother of Michael, a cipher clerk at his country's embassy in Canberra. Michael himself also wanted to defect, but he required assurance of his brother John's safety before agreeing to do so. At this stage, the trainees were told only that the exercise would involve the surveillance of John. That's as much information as they got.
Yep.
In terms of the briefing that the Acting Director General, being John Ryan, did get, the Acting Director General and the Head of Emergency Planning visited the ASIS training facility on the 25th and 26th of November to meet the trainees and to observe their training. On the 26th, after watching some sessions, the Acting Director General, being Ryan, and HEP, were spoken to by Dave about the planned exercise. Now, there is a conflict of evidence here about the length of the meeting. Estimates range from 3 minutes to half an hour. And there's a reason that that's important.
Just a factor of 10 difference between the estimates.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. There's also a dispute about whether the discussion constituted clearance of the exercise by Ryan, the Acting Director General.
Okay.
Dave states that at this point he briefed the Acting Director General and HEP about the proposed course of the exercise from beginning to end. He outlined the scenario as it happened and gave the name of the hotel to be used. He advised at this point that the exercise would change from a surveillance exercise to a rescue operation, and that he proposed the trainees carry weapons throughout. HEP asked whether the weapons would be concealed and was assured by Dave that they would be.
Okay.
This is 3 days after he's written his shopping list that includes the silenced semi-auto submachine guns. Sorry, yeah,
which cannot be concealed. Because they are about that big.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're not sticking that in your waistband and
No.
tucking a shirt over it.
No. And the Acting Director General, John Ryan, asked Dave to keep him informed of how things were going when the rescue stage of the operation was unfolding. He wanted up-to-date information about what was going on with this operation. That was what he advised at that meeting.
Yep.
The Acting Director General, John Ryan, stated in evidence that he was told that whilst there had been consideration of force being used to effect the rescue, no force would in fact be used. He said statements like, cooler heads will prevail, the trainees know where the limits are, they, we trust our trainees, they've done these kinds of exercises before. So whilst during the training sessions that he witnessed, the leader of the group had gone through using force on the door, for example. Dave assured the Acting Director General that this was just to make sure that he gave a thorough rundown because, if it was a real life operation, then that would be an option. So he was just being thorough. This is Dave. Damn it, fucking Dave.
Oh, boy.
The tale of two Johns and their friend Dave. Yeah.
At this point, it's reading more like their mortal fucking enemy, Dave.
Yeah. Oh, I swear Dave has got he's got a humiliation fetish, I think.
Yeah, he's...
Honestly, at the end of this, the only quarter that they were given by the government was that they agreed not to reveal all of their documents publicly. And I swear it was just because they were like, we can't. It's so embarrassing. It would be so humiliating.
Yeah, if we show the public this and show them just how purely incompetent these people are, they'll never fucking trust us again.
Anytime they see ASIO appear, it's just going to be like, Dave, damn it, fucking Dave.
ASIO, clown show.
Clown
It
show,
rhymes.
ASIO. The exercise began on the 27th of November. The trainee team began surveillance of their target the following day. They conducted surveillance on a farm near Geelong where John was working. John then left for Geelong, where he met 2 foreign intelligence officers being impersonated by ASIS staff members. After a break in the meeting, the 2 foreign intelligence officers went through the motions of abducting John and taking him by car to the Sheraton Hotel. The trainees lost John and the foreign intelligence officers on the way to Melbourne and had to be told by a member of the Army Intelligence Tactical Unit that they could be found at the Sheraton Hotel. So they fucked up early on. They fucked up the surveillance stage.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they had to call it a favour with their friends. For the team, the period from the 28th to the 30th of November was then just settled down into a routine of surveillance at the Sheraton Hotel. For their part, the foreign intelligence officers regularly left the hotel for exercise and to pick up food. On one occasion, on the morning of the 28th of November, they took John for a walk in the Treasury Gardens. During the days John and the guards were in the hotel, about $70 worth of liquor was consumed by them. All of this is to say that there was a lot of information that these people had access to that tells them what they did next was not the smartest idea. Okay? Like, there's other opportunities. You know, they're taking this guy out for walks.
Mm-hmm.
They're drunk. They've been drinking a lot of alcohol. There's a lot of signals here that there's other opportunities. You don't need to do this. This isn't the way. Okay, what the fuck? Anyway.
Yep.
The trainees team leader, who was one of the members of the trainee, had been selected by Dave to leave the trainees in the exercise.
Oh, boy.
The team leader was advised by Dave at 4 p.m. on the 29th of November that the team's objective had now been altered. Okay, so this is after several days of surveillance. They are now required to rescue John from the foreign intelligence officers.
Mm-hmm.
A written instruction to that effect, called a warning order, was given to the team leader. This required the rescue to be effected early in the evening of the 30th of November using the minimum force necessary. The team leader was also instructed to advise of a plan to effect the rescue. So again, the team leader here was asked for some basic communication.
Yeah. Now, just to confirm, right? Everybody involved in this is ASIS, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So everybody involved, from the asset to the foreign intelligence agents to the trainees, they're all part of ASIS.
Except for the times they have to call and ask for help for someone who actually knows what they're doing.
From the army.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I just wanted to confirm that because I feel like we are just approaching the cusp of a fucking shitstorm. Okay. Let's continue.
The team leader was instructed to devise a plan to effect the rescue, and it was at this point that he asked for equipment to use in the rescue, including listening devices, a lockpick or lockpicking equipment, and some other items.
Mm-hmm.
A member of the AIT, which was the Army's unit, attended this meeting. Another meeting between the team leader and Dave, also with the same Army member in attendance, was held at 9 a.m. on the 30th of November. Bearing in mind that the Army members bore absolutely no responsibility in any of this, they were simply there trying to assist in mitigating any issues that might arise. Okay. Dave told the team leader at 9 a.m. on the 30th of November that the listening devices, the lockpick, and the equipment for picking the lock were not available. The team leader also asked for handcuffs, a sledgehammer, and a crowbar. Browning pistols, submachine guns, balaclavas, and gloves.
Okay.
The submachine guns were requested because the foreign intelligence officers might be armed, and these guns would provide a clear margin of superiority and would be silenced. The team leader was told by Dave he would have to purchase the sledgehammer and the crowbar because they were not obtainable from ASIS stores. The equipment that was provided from ASIS stores was handed over by Dave to a member of the trainee team at a meeting in the early afternoon of the 30th of November at the National Gallery car park. At the meeting, the team member was told by Dave that the team would have to purchase the sledgehammer and the crowbar that they had requested. Yeah, there seems to be a real disconnect. This is something that the judge points out throughout this, is that really no effort was taken to provide. Your job is collecting foreign intelligence and you can't provide your trainees with listening equipment, but you can provide them with submachine guns and then tell them to go and buy a fucking sledgehammer.
Right. Get yourself a sledgehammer. Go and do it on the company card. It'll be fine. We can reimburse it in the tax claims later. It's all good.
The brief back. At that point, Dave informed John Ryan, the acting director general, that he intended to hold a meeting called a brief back with the team leader at 3 p.m. on the 30th of November at Fitzroy Gardens, and he invited the assistant acting director general, to attend. This meeting was intended to provide the team leader with an opportunity to outline in detail his plans for accomplishing the rescue and to obtain final approval for his plans.
Okay.
The briefback was attended by the Acting Director General, John Ryan, Dave, our good friend Dave, the team leader who'd been selected from out of the group of trainees, and a member of the Army Intelligence Task Force, the Army dudes. The team leader stated that he proposed that the team use subterfuge to enter the room where John was being held. Now, he was being held on the 10th floor of the Sheraton Hotel at that time. He said the plan was that one team member would dress as a waiter and ask that the door to the suite be open so that he could obtain a signature for a parcel delivery.
Yep.
Other plans for subterfuge were said to have been considered, but the waiter scheme was the preferred option by all those in attendance.
Room service.
Yeah. The team leader then stated that if that plan failed, the team would break the lock on the door by using a sledgehammer. After hearing the team leader's plan, the acting director general, John Ryan, called Dave away and walked with him some distance from the team leader and the army member. Now, there's some conflict in what they said here, but what is agreed is that the acting director general wanted assurance. So John Ryan wanted assurance from Dave that force would not be used to that effect in this rescue. He was like, hang on, pause the game for a second, like Barley's. I want to make sure that no sledgehammer is actually going to be used in the making of this production. And Dave went, no, definitely not. The team leader's just gone over that option for the sake of reality for us. And acting director general John Ryan's gone, excellent, good, no worries. They've come back regrouped with that being.
John Ryan's like, Dave, I swear to God, if you break one of the Sheraton Hotel's doors, I am going to take that door and insert it inside of you sideways.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely. Yeah.
I have a point system with these guys.
They will take, I am a gold platinum member, motherfucker. That will go away like that.
Fuck that up for me.
Dave says that he advised that good judgment of the team would prevail and would mean that no doors would actually be knocked down. And that the option for force had been used again only for the sake of completeness, for, completing the picture. At that, Mr. Ryan left after telling Dave to go ahead with the exercise. The acting director general spoke directly to the team leader about only one thing. The team leader asked whether the foreign intelligence officers would be armed. The acting director general had replied that it was reasonable to expect foreign intelligence officers to be armed in such a situation. The execution of the plan that evening. The training team assembled in room 007, adjacent to the suite of rooms 004, which was part of the penthouse 4, in which John was being held at 8 p.m. on the 30th of November.
They were in room 007.
Yeah, I know. I know.
Oh. Okay, let's continue. I'm just going to leave that one hanging. Everyone knows why that makes me furious. I don't need to say anymore.
There's a reason I mentioned it. It wasn't really necessary to mention what room number they were in.
Oh,
But I still felt
my
the need
God.
to.
It reads like a shit comedy.
It, honest to God, reading through this reads as you get to the end of this and you're like, Dave just really fucking wanted his own Mission Impossible. Dusk had been chosen as the best time for carrying out the rescue since conditions would facilitate a quiet getaway. I don't know why they thought that in Melbourne, but okay.
Yeah, right? Dusk.
Yeah. The team members assembled in room 007, adjacent to the suite rooms, which was 004, penthouse 4, in which John was being held at 8 p.m. on the 30th of November. The team members were issued with party masks, which were to be worn to conceal their identities and also to maintain a cover story that they were escorting John on his Bucks night. The equipment to be used in the rescue, including the weapons, had earlier been taken to a room on another floor of the hotel, in room 1109, which the team had been using as its base of surveillance prior to this point. Shortly before the rescue was attempted, they moved all of this back down to room 007. The weapons had been guarded at all times, according to all the, everyone who was involved says that we were really careful with making sure we didn't lose sight of the weapons, which is really, really, really fortunate. All the weapons were also loaded with plastic cartridges. These cartridges make a bang, but do not emit a missile. In some circumstances, they can cause injury at close range. The cartridges were included to simulate reality. I included all of this information because it's good to know that the weapons were guarded at all times, because it turns out these weapons were never formally signed out of the ASIS armory.
Of course not.
So these motherfuckers are running around town
Of course not.
with submachine guns that no one even knows they have.
Wow.
I was going to say, though, tell me, guys, this isn't so far the wildest episode we have done of the podcast.
And that's where we'll leave episode 1 for now. Sorry to leave you on a cliffhanger, but we do have a lot more information coming out in episode 2, which you'll be able to find very soon.
And if you are a member of our Ko-fi, you will get part 2 of this episode right now up on our Ko-fi. Just another reason to become one of our beloved trash pandas.
As always, thanks to everyone who has joined us for this week's dive into the depths of the trash fire that is Australian politics. If you've enjoyed what we've done this week, please make sure to drop us a follow, rate us 5 stars, share the episode with your buddies, and maybe visit our Ko-fi if you're really feeling it. And then, do all of the other usual engagement things to help us get the word out there. You can find Tamara and myself on the social media links that are no doubt in the description below. But for now, it is garbage day, so the girls got to take the trash out. Bye. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Bye.